Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new here, hi, my name is Bongi and thank you so much for stopping by. Please don't forget to click on my channel and check it out, and also subscribe while you're at it. And once again, thank you so much for hanging out with us on this beautiful Wednesday. So today's case took place in Nigeria. We're going to be talking about the Cynthia Osokogu case. But before I get into it, you guys already know that this is where I make my usual disclaimer that I mean absolutely no disrespect to anybody that I'm going to be talking about in this video and all the families that were and are affected by this case. This video is purely for educational purposes, and all the information was gotten off of the internet and simply compiled into one video. And now let's get into it. Cynthia Osokogu was born on the 10th of November 1987 in Akpa Town, which is in Delta State, to parents Frank Osokogu and Joy Rita Osokogu. Frank and Joy had 4 children together, and Cynthia was their last and only daughter. Frank was a retired army general, and other members of the family were also well respected and had also achieved quite a lot for themselves. Cynthia's eldest brother, Kenneth Osokogu, was a flight lieutenant, while her second eldest brother, William Osokogu, was an assistant superintendent of customs. Her immediate brother, Tony, was living in Greece at the time. Not much is said about his career and what he was doing in Greece, but I mean, he was living abroad, so he must have been doing something right. Cynthia was also doing great. She was doing well for herself, and she had also achieved quite a lot at the age of 24. Her family described her as hardworking, loving, and industrious. She would have a goal or have a dream and put her all into working towards achieving all her goals. That's the type of woman that Cynthia was. She was an English graduate at the Nasarawa State University, and she was also pursuing her master's degree in public administration at the same institution. Before enrolling into the Nasarawa State to pursue her master's degree, she was working for MTN, but she left her job in order to focus on her studies. She was also a former model and owned a boutique called Dress Code, which was located in Kefi, which is a town in Nasarawa State. But like many young people, Cynthia was also active on social media, and unfortunately, this is where she would meet a lot of people who had ill intentions. She developed an acquaintanceship with a man called Echezona Nwabufo after chatting with him on Facebook for about 4 months. Soon after engaging in these conversations with him, she would also go on to add Echezona's nephew named Olisailoka Ezike onto her friend list on Facebook, and they would all just start engaging with each other. The 2 men told Cynthia that they were also in the retail business and they offered to be her supplier. And even though Cynthia already had somebody importing stuff for her boutique all the way from the United States, when these men told her that they could sell her the same things at a lower price, she couldn't help but accept the offer. They were both likable and seemed normal, and there was nothing alarming about them. They even offered to accommodate Cynthia when she went to Legos to buy the stuff from them. But what Cynthia didn't know was that Echezona Nwabufo had been stalking her for months before, and he had ulterior motives. So on the 21st of July 2012, Cynthia flew to Lagos from Abuja to meet the retailers that she had been talking to on Facebook. After landing in Lagos, she called her mother to tell her that she had landed safely, and then she called Echezona and Ezike to tell them to come and pick her up. They picked her up from the airport and drove her to Cosmilla Hotel in the Lakeview Estate in Festec Town. They had checked into the hotel at around 8 a.m. on the day and then checked out. They came back again and checked in at around 12 p.m. but this time they were with Cynthia. So they went to their room and they entertained her a bit before offering her a drink that had been spiked with a drug called Rohypnol. Rohypnol is a tranquilizer that has paralyzing effects and is classified as a drug. It is illegal in some countries because it can cause severe drowsiness and is usually used for all the wrong reasons. And according to drugfreeworlds.org, a person can be so incapacitated by the effects of this drug that they collapse. They lie on the floor with their eyes open, able to see everything that's happening around them or to them, but completely unable to move. And afterwards, their memory is impaired and they are unable to recall any of the events that took place while the drug was still in their system, basically. So they continued chatting with her, hoping that the drug would work. But the drug didn't work as fast as they had anticipated, so they began beating her up and demanding that she reveals where she kept her money. They thought that she would have a lot of money on her, but she told them that she didn't have any money other than the money that she had brought to buy the stuff from them. So when they didn't get any money from her, they tied her up and they took her money, the money that she had brought to buy stuff from them. They also took her 3 BlackBerry phones, her jewelry, her passport, and her driver's license, and then they raped her and strangled her to death. The next morning, they unfriended her on Facebook and got ready to leave. Echezona Nwabufo's nephew was the first to leave the room. So a lady called Ifeinwa Njebu, who was the receptionist who checked them in, routinely called out all the rooms to check on those who were still occupying the rooms and those who were just about to check out. Echezona came down the stairs and told her that he would be staying longer. He also asked her to permit him to go to the ATM to withdraw some money to pay for the rest of the day, and told her that his girlfriend was still in the room. She said okay and didn't go to check the room, but she also reminded him to be back before 12 p.m. because that's when his room would be expiring. He agreed that he would be back before 12 p.m. and then walked away. His nephew then came out from the bar to meet him and the two walked out of the hotel. At around 3 p.m. that day, she received a call from one of the two men, and the caller said that he was one of the occupants of a room who left recently, and also said that he wouldn't be coming back. He further went to say that Miss Njebu should remove the quote-unquote idiot from the room, and then hung up. Miss Njebu was startled by this information and decided to rush to the hotel manager to inform him of this phone call. The hotel manager said that it was okay and that since the caller's girlfriend was still in the room, she would be paying for the room. So he told her to call the room through the intercom, which she did multiple times but got no response. The manager himself also walked to the room, knocked on the door several times but again got no response. So he walked back to Miss Njebu and told her to use the master key to enter the room, and this was unfortunately their last resort because the person in the room was not responding to their calls or their knocks on the door. Miss Njebu unlocked the door, and as soon as she opened it, she saw a woman's lifeless body lying naked on the bed, and she screamed for help. She ran to the manager and told him what she had seen, and the manager immediately called the police to inform them. Cynthia's body was then taken to a morgue in Lagos, but unfortunately the police could not identify her or even inform her family of her death. The police could obviously tell that this woman was murdered, so they began investigating her murder. So they played the hotel CCTV footage to Miss Njebu, and she was then able to identify Echezona Nwabufo and Ezike Olisailoka. She was also able to identify them when they were brought into the police station. Back at home, Cynthia's family was starting to get worried. Her mother had called her phone on multiple occasions for about 5 days straight, and her phone was off. But on the 7th day when she called, one of the men picked Cynthia's phone up and told her that Cynthia was sick and couldn't come to the phone. But he then changed his story and said that he kidnapped Cynthia and he was demanding that the family give him 20 million naira. Cynthia's mom then asked him if he had killed Cynthia, and he said no, Cynthia was just sick and couldn't come to the phone. Her mother reported the call to the police, and the call was traced to Festac Town. Her missing persons report was then submitted to the Area E Command in Festac Town, and that's when the police took Cynthia's parents to the morgue to identify the body. And finally, the deceased was positively identified as Cynthia Osokogu. The police did, however, delay to release Cynthia's body to her family because they were not done performing an autopsy, but eventually her body was released to her family and she was laid to rest in her hometown. So when Cynthia's body was found, she was naked and her hands were tied behind her back. Her feet were also taped together. Her mouth was stuffed with a hairnet and a handkerchief with a tape over it to secure the contents that were inside. The pathologist revealed that Cynthia suffered from pulmonary edema, which is a condition caused by excess fluid in the lungs. She also had multiple bruises and abrasions that were suspected to be from biting, and her cause of death was asphyxiation from strangulation. The rohypnol was not responsible for her death. After Echezona and Ezike were arrested, several other women came to the police saying that they had also been drugged, tied up, robbed and by the suspects, but fortunately they had survived the attack. Echezona and Ezike also confessed to robbing several other women before Cynthia, who just so happened to be their sixth victim. The confession was thankfully recorded in a videotape by the police. They were supposedly part of a gang that specialized in luring young women in and then robbing them, and sometimes even killing them. And some people, spectators, speculated that Cynthia's murder or the murders may have been ritualistic, like maybe the people who Echezona and Ezike murdered were some sort of a sacrifice. But unfortunately, they never revealed to the police the real reason why they murdered Cynthia Osokogu. Because Echezona and Ezike didn't give the police the full story, the police had to come up with a theory or draw up a timeline of events. So the police's theory was that the two men probably targeted Cynthia because they figured that because she was a daughter of a retired army general and she was also a business owner, she would be carrying large sums of cash. But her big brother Kenneth said that she never carried large sums of cash at all and didn't even carry an ATM card because she had a checkbook. So Echezona and Ezike were probably enraged by the little money they got from her, even after spending so much money to get her to Legos, and they were also probably enraged by the fact that Cynthia kept struggling and trying to scream even though she had been drugged, and so they decided to kill her. But we must remember that this is just the police's theory, unfortunately, because the two men who actually know what happened do not want to give us the timeline of events. We will most probably never know what happened, the events that happened before Cynthia was killed. So apart from Echezona and Ezike's arrest, there were also other suspects who had also been arrested. The first being Osita Oji, who was the pharmacist who sold the rohypnol to Echezona without a prescription. And the second being the man who sold Cynthia's possessions, Nonso Ezike, who also happened to be Olisailoka Ezike's brother. They were charged with conspiracy to commit felony, conspiracy to murder, armed robbery, unlawful administration of obnoxious substance, and forceful administration of obnoxious substance with the view of causing bodily harm. The pharmacist was charged with negligence and they all pleaded not guilty to all of their charges. The confessional statements made by Echezona and Ezike were admitted as evidence, and there were also witnesses who testified against the two defendants. Some of them claiming that they had seen images of Cynthia lying on her chest, and some claiming that they saw images of Cynthia lying on her back with her passport over her chest, and they had all seen these images on a laptop belonging to either Echezona or Ezike. However, despite all of this evidence that had been admitted against them, Echezona decided to change his story. He denied having any knowledge of the rohypnol and ever using it to drug Cynthia. He even went as far as claiming that Cynthia was his lover and that they were actually planning on getting married before Cynthia's death. So he dismissed the allegations that they had met on Facebook, claiming that he had met Cynthia in 2011 at ShopRite Mall in Lekki, where the two had went for some shopping, I guess. They exchanged their contacts, became friends, and have been close ever since then. But under cross-examination, he couldn't tell the court Cynthia's birthday, Cynthia's mother's birthday, her hometown, or anything about her, and there was no other evidence to support his claim, and so for these reasons the court dismissed his claim. They also tried to withdraw their confessions, claiming that their confessions were made under duress. However, their confessions were consistent with the statements made by the witnesses, the evidence provided by the police, and the state of Cynthia's body when it was found. The court was satisfied that their confessions were not made under duress and they were therefore admitted as, evidence. This was a big case in Nigeria, so big that it took the court 4 years to make a decision. But eventually, in March of 2017, the court had made a decision. The judge said that the two men, Echezona and Ezike, didn't even show the slightest remorse while in court. And over and above that, they were arrogant and disrespectful to the court of law and to the deceased because they continuously lied in court while under oath, even though they had confessed to the police. They were both found guilty of murder and 3 other charges and were given the sentence of 20 years for those 3 other charges. They were given 14 years for conspiracy to commit murder, 3 years for conspiracy to commit felony by stealing, and 3 years for stealing Cynthia's BlackBerry phones. So I guess it's 1 year for each phone because if you remember correctly, they had stolen 3 of Cynthia's BlackBerry phones. Echezona Nwabufo and Ezike Olisailoka were also sentenced to death by hanging for the murder of Cynthia Osokogu. And if you were wondering what happened to the pharmacist and the other guy, well, Osita Orji and Nonso Ezike were both acquitted on the ground that the prosecution didn't have enough evidence against them and that they didn't prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. So that's what happened. I don't know if Echezona and Ezike have been executed yet because there's really not that much information about this case on the internet, surprisingly, because this to me seems like it was a big case in Nigeria. So it is really unfortunate and surprising that there's not that much information about this case on the internet. I was really looking for more. I wish I could have provided you guys with more information, but unfortunately I couldn't find it. But at least we found what we found and it made sense. But anyways, you guys, we have reached the end of today's case. If you found this video informative or if you enjoyed it, please click on the like button, and if you didn't, you may click on the dislike button and let me know in the comment section down below what it is that you think I should do to improve my content. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and check out all my other playlists and just check out my channel and watch my other videos, and turn on your notifications, your post notifications, so that you get notified each time I post a new upload. And that's it. I'll see you guys next week Wednesday. Bye.